1985. I think my first month on the Conroe ISD school board, and none of you is old enough to remember this, we had a little cheerleader problem. Now, I know that doesn't happen in your school district. But I was a brand new board member, and David was there helping take care of it. And 34 hours of hearings later, we did take care of it. So I wish I was on his hourly rate. So, as you all know, probably the worst kept secret, it's not even a secret, is where's the money? How are we going to run our schools? How are we going to take care of what we've committed to? And believe it or not, the legislature is asking themselves that same question. We've had a select committee that was looking to tweak things. In fact, this was before we thought we would be in such a hole.
My role today, though, is to introduce our speaker, David Thompson, principal with Thompson and Horton. Our college goes way back with David, back when he was with Bracewell and Giuliani. He is well known. Anybody in the state of Texas, actually nationally, that's involved in education, higher education, they know of David Thompson. He is the gold standard for understanding how boards work, how schools are financed. David, should I stop there? Or you want me to keep going?
Stop right there. I may just leave. I'll just slip out.
David's background, I mean, I've got 2 pages here. Sorry, I'm not going to read it all, but I can sum it up by saying that every key organization, every key role in the state of Texas in education he's been involved in. He was a legislative counsel for the Texas Association of School Administrators. He's the legislative counsel for Fast Growth School Coalition, which I know that a number of our ISDs here are part of. Beyond that, he has legislative experience. He was the worked for the Public Education Committee for the State House of Representatives. He worked in the court system as an attorney for the Ninth Court of Appeals. He was Associate Executive Director of TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards, General Counsel for the Texas Education Agency. In addition to that, he has been involved in higher education. He's an adjunct professor for UT, U of H downtown, and Clear Lake, and Texas A&M. I think he hit them all. You haven't worked for us, David. We need to work on that.
We will.
Okay.
We'll get that.
Need to be with Lone Star. So, I mean, as you can see, his background is perfect for addressing this subject. He also has been involved in really 2 of the key legal challenges or cases in courts for public education. The Edgewood case and the West Orange Grove case that challenged the constitutionality of the public school system. So this man is obviously the one that's going to take us to the goal line here to explain how public education works in Texas, how it's financed, and how we can get involved. So with that, let me introduce Mr. David Thompson.
Thank you, Ray, for those very, very kind remarks. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much to the Chamber for allowing me to come and be part of your breakfast this morning. Congratulations. I want to extend my congratulations to all of the great school districts that we have in this area, and to the great work that you do with boys and girls every day. And to our elected officials who are here, our legislators, thank you for the work you do in Austin. It's a difficult job. Texas, I think, is one of only 6 states that has biennial sessions, and we meet for a fairly short period of time, 140 days every other year. And I think we will probably cover 6,000 or 7,000 bills, resolutions, and a state budget that appropriates over $180 billion during that period of time. So these individuals start very early in the morning, they go very late in the evening, they work very hard, and I think the fact that we don't get every problem solved is more a reflection of the difficulty of the problems, not a reflection of the lack of effort sometimes. And so I think it's always important to keep that in mind, and I appreciate you. For those of you who are on school boards, I've had the privilege in my career to work with school boards all over the state of Texas, and I'm always appreciative that men and women are willing to serve in these roles. I view serving on the school board as the ultimate in public service and service to your communities, and thank you for doing that. Now, how many of you are serving in more than one term? You're in your second term or more. I'm particularly appreciative of people who, once they know what they're getting into, sign up and do it again. And Rob talked about when he and I first met in a little cheerleader issue at Conroe a number of years ago. And Rob, you've told me this, and I'm sure you've told other people, that out of all the difficult issues you deal with in Austin, looking at your neighbors and trying to make hard decisions that affect their kids is probably the hardest decisions, probably than some of the ones you deal with in Austin. And our school boards deal with that on a regular basis, and so do our administrators. Rob is chair of the Public Education Committee in Austin, and runs a great committee. He's brought a lot of good humor and a lot of just good spirit to the committee. But he has, if any of you have been there on some of our late night meetings, he keeps a little gong on the dais in front of him. And if a speaker is running a little too long, he starts dinging on his little gong. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know that you brought your gong this morning, but I'm going to try to keep my remarks fairly brief, and then I know we'll have some time for questions and answers. First of all, we're going to talk primarily about a little bit about funding this morning, but I want to give you a little bit of demographic information. I think it's always important. If you just jump into the money, sometimes we're talking in such large sums that it's easy to lose track of what we're spending the money on. So I like to start and talk a little bit about what's going on with our kids and with our state. First of all, in the state of Texas, we are blessed to be a growing state. There are stresses that come with that, but I'm going to tell you, my wife is from Ohio, and it's a whole lot easier and better to be on this end than to be on the end that's losing population. Our state as a whole is growing. I think we're adding something over 350,000 total residents a year, over near roughly 1,000 a day, somewhere in that range. But we're adding every year to the public schools of the state of Texas over 80,000 kids. We're adding a district the size of Fort Worth ISD every year to the state of Texas. Now, over the last 10 years, out of the last 800,000 kids we've added to our state, over 60% of those, over 500,000, needed either some form of bilingual or ESL services or some form of special education services. So we're a growing state, and we're adding kids who bring needs. This last year in 09-010, for the first time in history, over 50% of our kids enrolled in free and reduced price lunch programs. That means that they come from families that are not wealthy, that are poor. So over half our kids are actually qualifying for, actually probably 57-58% qualify, but over half our kids are participating in programs that are really designed to feed kids who come from poor economic backgrounds. And that number's growing, by the way, by about 1% a year. About 5 years ago, if you disaggregate our student populations, if you look at Anglo, African American, Hispanics, student groups, the Hispanic group passed the Anglo group as being the single largest group. Sometime during this next biennium, sometime during this 2-year period, our Hispanic student population is going to become the absolute majority of all students enrolled in our public schools. That will happen during this biennium. So again, a very rapidly changing demographic population in our schools. I think we see in the schools the leading demographic changes that will eventually be reflected in all of Texas. We see it earlier in our schools, and so we're seeing those changes. So a large population, a growing population, a population that's increasingly needy from an economic standpoint, and then a population that is coming with some special needs, particularly in the area of language with our growing Hispanic population. A little quick snapshot, and you're probably seeing some of those changes in your communities and in your school districts. What are we trying to accomplish with this population? We're trying to get them to high standards, and specifically Texas, and I commend our legislature for this. We were one of the first states to explicitly set as a goal, what do we want a kid when he finishes high school to be able to do? What's the point of getting out of high school? The point of getting out of high school is post-secondary readiness. It's to be ready for the next step in your life that in this day and age is going to involve some type of training. And specifically, we've adopted post-secondary readiness, and now that's readiness either to attend a 4-year college or a 2-year college like Lone Star, or to enter an industry certification program that will lead to excellent training and hopefully a good paying job. Preparation for a good position in the military, something of that nature that allows kids to go on and be productive. And that's our goal in our schools. So we're taking a growing, needy population, and our goal is to get to high standards. Now we are doing this in a labor-intensive delivery system. And I can tell you about our law firm. You can probably talk about your businesses. What have most businesses done over the last 20 years to become more efficient? You've invested a lot in technology. You've become less labor intensive. We've invested in technology to reduce dependence on people. Or we've outsourced jobs. Some jobs we've sent overseas. We're probably not going to educate our kids on a coal line from India. So there are limitations on how much we bring some of those efficiency tools into the schools. We're going to have to do more of it, particularly in the area of technology, and I think over the next 10 years, that's going to be pretty fascinating to watch how that develops. But we employ in the state of Texas somewhere around 650,000 people in our public schools. Think about that. In Harris County alone, our 3 or 4 biggest school districts run a transportation system bigger than Metro. We serve more meals in our schools here than every restaurant combined. Pretty massive business enterprise. We employ 650,000 people, a majority of them teachers. And the second largest group are campus-based personnel, by the way. The growth is not in central office, but it's in specialists, either reading specialists or people of that nature at the campus level. So that's just a little snapshot of what's going on.